What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email me, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. I'm joined alongside Tim, live in Green Bay. Back to talk a little Packers this morning. Tim, how you doing this morning, man? You got the diesel flowing?
You know it, man. I'm the second cup already, man.
Had that ninja fired up already, didn't you, bro?
You know it, man. You know it. I forgot to program it last night, so like a moron, I had to get up and actually make coffee in the morning like most people do, I guess.
For those of you who don't know, Tim's got a contraption where he just sets that thing ahead of time. And it's kind of like the Maxwell House commercials back in the 80s and 90s, right? You wake up. The best part of waking up is not was Folgers. There you go. Folgers.
That was Folgers.
Yeah,
Yep.
Folgers sponsor the show. I don't drink your coffee unless you sponsor the show, then I'll drink your coffee. But outside of that, mine is right now I'm on the Cafe Bustelo. I think I'm saying that right. It's like this real fine powder, like espresso, essentially. So that's why you see me over here tweaking like a tweaker does, right?
Got that good stuff over there.
That's right. We got everybody in the chat here. We got Nick McSwain in the house. What's up, buddy? Zane Strong, Peter Stone. Let's see, David Mitchell up in here. Boz, what's up, man? The legend that is Boz. I like it. And Zane Strong said, hey, look, guys, hit that like button. It's free, man. Doesn't cost a dime. It is free 99. All right. Nick McSwain in the chat says, do y'all think Aaron Jones will be in the Packers Hall of Fame? Yes, 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 and yes. Tim, if you disagree, we can no longer be friends. So what do you think about Aaron Jones, man?
Probably the easiest yes ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Of course, Jonesy will be in for sure.
Yeah. I sort of say, yeah, I think he will. We know he will. And he's just done everything right too, man. He's just stand-up dude, a lot for the community, overachiever, perfect teammate, good in the run and the passing game. We've seen him just absolutely dominate Micah Parsons' pass blocking. For a man his size, I mean, what else can you ask for in a running back to block one of the best edge defenders in the game, right? So, again, he's coming back this year. There's no doubt in my mind. I'd be willing to bet the farm he's going to be back. The question is, does he lose a step? If so, what's crazy is if he's healthy and he does lose a little bit of a step, he's still, in my opinion, a top 10, maybe even a top 15, maybe even top 10 back if he does lose a step. I mean, he's that dynamic. If I remember correctly, he led the league in rushing the last 3 weeks of the season. I think that's what it was. So love it, man. Love the fact that that Jones is here and a running back on this team, been for so long. M. Smitty 1386 says Jones is one of the best to represent the G. He really does, man. For someone who reps the G, like that's – and it's crazy too because, like, Rodgers talked about it, right? You heard Aaron Jones talk about how Aaron pulled him to the side one day on the practice field and said, I just want you to know you're one of my favorite players in this organization, and just building him up. And then you've seen Aaron Jones get behind Jordan Love and build him up, and it's just kind of carrying that on into the next the next wave of Packers. So I think we're in good hands there. I'd like to see Jonesy. I could see him, Tim. I could see him being one of those guys that after he retires, and hopefully this is 5 years down the road, right? I think you can see him being one of those guys that kind of hangs around the community. You always see him around Lambeau. You always see him doing things for the organization. I'd love to see him get involved in maybe the board or something somehow, some way, kind of like Leroy Butler has, right?
Absolutely.
Because you can never have too many of those guys that's seen it on both sides, right? They've been a player, and him being a later round pick, overachieved, got the contract, got the second contract, and just someone who, like I said, you could tell that he's lockstep with the organization. He never complains about his role in the offense, even when he wasn't getting the carries that we knew he deserved under Mike McCarthy. Never complained about it, just came to work every day and did it the right way for sure, man. People are hearing me that are tuning in right now. They're probably going, what happened? Jones retired? No, we're good. So let's see here. Zane Strong says JJ will be out for a while. Do you guys see Cox Jr. making a big leap next season? I hope so. The problem there with that one, Tim, and I've kind of thought about it. If I remember correctly, and you guys correct me in the chat if I'm remembering this wrong, I think he came out of Florida was the last place he played. And it kind of felt like he was more of a hybrid linebacker, and they tried to just kind of mold him into that outside linebacker in the 34. I could see with his play style him being more of an inside backer that blitzed occasionally, right? Kind of like how we see Quay coming into the league.
Yep.
But now that we're switching to a 4-3, if indeed we do, I don't know if they're going to stick with him as a pure, hand in the dirt defensive end, or if they might try to move him over to linebacker. And I'm not trying to be negative. I think he's got just an absolute bag full of talent. But sometimes those guys, when you make the switch, there's casualties along the way, right? And it's like, okay, he doesn't quite fit here, he doesn't quite fit there. That really fits the mold of a 34 outside linebacker where you can blitz and drop into coverage from time to time, mostly blitz. And the fact that he didn't make the roster too, right, Tim? How do you feel about Brenton Cox Jr., man? You think he could possibly make a leap here, and do you think they'll trust him to fill in for Enigbare?
I think so. I really do. I'm, that's Jacob's guy, so I'm going to be
stay off limits, right?
Yeah, right. But no, we talked about that though. Jacob was spot on. I do see the potential for him to take that step, and I don't like to do predictions, but I do see him being one of those guys that can have a different role. I mean, we got a new defense, new approach, and yeah, there's certainly going to be a missing piece there with Kingsley and Ibare not being in the fold. So, this is your opportunity, right? This is what you work hard for in this league. So we're going to get a good indication of who exactly Brenton Cox Jr. is, I think, this season, 2024. So
yeah,
be on the lookout.
Definitely one of those names we'll keep an eye on when it comes to camp, right? Because if he comes out and he flashes like a Carrington Valentine did last year and really gets on the radar, you may see them just go ahead and throw him on the active roster and kind of keep him there rather than bouncing him back and forth off the practice squad, that type of thing. They definitely saw enough in him to put him on the 53, even though he was inactive the large majority of the year. I'm trying to think of what weeks he was actually active. I don't focus on that bottom third of the roster much during the season. It's more about the X's and O's, watching the tape. All right, what are we actually trying to accomplish? We'll see. We'll kind of know coming out of camp if you hear a lot about him, maybe he's going to make that leap and be that regular active on Sundays. That's kind of the first step he's got to make, right? So,
yep.
Me and Ryan had some great conversations. Ryan Schlipp here from Packernet Podcast yesterday, just DMing back and forth. Yesterday afternoon it was, and talking about scheme. And he was asking me some of the numbers of like, hey, how much single high did we actually run? And when I told him, I think he was a bit surprised, like, holy cow, like, so we weren't playing shell all year. No, sir, we were. And also this whole playing soft, not playing aggressive, we brung 5, fifth most in the league too. So we were rushing at least 5 a large majority of the time to put that kind of cross compare with what we think might be what Hafley's defense looks like coming into the league. Robert Saleh brung 5, like 27th most in the league. They always brung 4. They brung 4 rushers 80% of the time. So it's like, okay, if he leans into what Saleh's doing, you're probably going to see a majority of the time just a 4-man rush. And you're probably going to see more shell than we saw last year because we went so single high, look, I guess, so single high heavy, I should say. So it's just interesting, man. I love that type of stuff, kind of digging in. Go, okay, what does this team do? What does that team do? And by the way, if you guys didn't hear, we're already off cuff. That's totally cool. Steve Wilkes was fired in San Francisco. Now, you guys know Steve Wilkes was the defensive coordinator, right? And obviously, San Francisco had one of the best defenses in the league, right? We ran the numbers, and they were 3rd in scoring in points per play, 3rd in scoring in points per game, 5th in passing, meaning passing yards allowed per attempt, and then 17th in rushing yards allowed per attempt, right? And here he gets fired, and they say there's a video out there. I haven't seen it yet, Tim. I believe Ryan confirmed he's seen it too by NFL Films, where Kyle Shanahan had to burn a timeout in that Super Bowl because he didn't like the defensive call. And I had heard through someone that he went to Wilkes and said, hey, stop playing zero coverage, essentially, right? And then lo and behold, they fire him. The official statement that was released from Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, we just didn't, and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially said we didn't like what we were doing schematically, like we weren't on the same page philosophy-wise. So what does that mean? Well, you got to start and you got to answer that question. You got to begin answering that question by going, okay, what did they do in the Super Bowl that upset Shanahan so much? Well, they gave up, 4 explosive plays. We talked about this the other day. They gave up 4 explosive plays, 1 running play that was explosive, 22-yarder by Mahomes, and 3 passing plays. Okay, and those passing plays were a 21-yard pass, a 25-yard pass, and a 22-yard pass. All 4 of those explosives led to a scoring drive for Kansas City. So what were they running during that time? Okay. They ran in the run, they ran man, single high man, cover 1 man, and the 3 passes was cover 1 man, cover 1 man, cover 2 zone invert. So now back up. What did Kyle Shanahan say? We didn't like our approach scheme wise. Basically, what Shanahan's saying is we play too aggressive. So careful what you wish for in being too aggressive. I don't think we're going to be overly aggressive this year. I really don't. I don't think it's going to be something where Hafley comes in here and we go, whoa, look at this, man. He's just all out blitzing all the time. I think it's going to be a good blend. I think you'll see more man coverage, but nowhere near as much as he played in college, obviously, and nowhere near as much as some fans might be hoping or expecting, right? And I think that's a good thing because, man, the explosives, they run rampant when you're in man coverage. There's no doubt about that. So what do you think about that, Tim, as far as Steve Wilks getting fired there? Pretty wild. You go to the Super Bowl, you have the 3rd best scoring defense, and you get canned. That's kind of a weird look.
Yeah, rough time for the 49er fans right now. And of course, I love it, like a lot of us do. But no, being aggressive is something that when you do it and you're successful, people love it and they want more of it. And when you get torched, then people get fired. That's kind of how it is. And it's like, I'm a poker player, so I poker is all about patience and timed aggression. So it's kind of like that in the NFL. You dial up an aggressive call in the right situation at the right time, it'll work like gangbusters and it'll be great. If you make that your overall approach and your overall philosophy and you're just aggressive, teams are going to expose you and they're going to find a way around that and they're going to use that aggressiveness against you, and I think that's kind of what we saw there. And Shanahan was like, hey, enough's enough. Literally had to burn a timeout to get to create a change, and ultimately it was probably too little too late at that point. But
right.
Yeah, and hey, that's where we're heading, right? We're talking about this right now with this Hafley defense, right? More aggressiveness, which is a good thing. I think a lot of Packer fans have been wanting to see that because you don't want to go the other way. You don't want to be too timid or, playing quote unquote soft all the time. It's about balance and it's about calculating those play calls and those moments when it's time to dial it up. Sometimes you got to send 5, you got to send 6 sometimes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you need more coverage, So I think, going out with the idea of like, oh, we're going to play man to man and we're going to be aggressive all the time. That's never a good look. You want to have balance, defensively in this league. So,
yeah, there's a reason that, like I said, the team that played the most man coverage only played it 40% of the time. They still played more zone than man, right?
Exactly.
If it was so effective, everyone would do it, right?
Yeah, and we talked about that too. We see the Packers, probably, in 2024 will have, probably be north of 30% on the man coverage calls, but I don't think it'll be anything. I don't think we're going to just flip from what we were doing with Joe Barry the last 3 years and just go completely polar opposite. Like if you think you're not going to see zone or zone match at all, you're going to be disappointed. I don't think Hafley's just going to go out there and play man to man all the time. I just don't see it. We'll just see more of it.
Right. Good morning, Randy. Good to see you in there, buddy. Randy Cleavers. Good to see you in the house. Ron Sample says defensive call was too aggressive, cost the timeout. These are the things as fans that we don't really talk about much, right? Like it's just something that we don't cover. We just breeze over them, and we just want results. We want results. We want results. I'm as guilty as anyone in that regard. That's why you got to really slow down and focus on, okay, what actually happened? What happened? Why did it happen? Where should we adjust? if we were the ones running the team, right? And we always want to kind of run that through that lens on this show. We want to remove as much of the emotion as we can, other than the post game shows after a big win. That's when we get in here and act like a bunch of idiots and have fun with it, right? Those are my favorite episodes too, by the way. Love it, man. Get just a little bit of Woodford flowing. Get in here and just hang out with your boys in the chat and talk about a big win. There's nothing better than that. Let's see what else we got in the chat. Number one Packer fan said, but I don't understand that. This is the team. This is the same DC that helped get them there coaching the same way. If Greenlaw was in and Burks was out, we may be having a different conversation. Yeah, Oren Burks got absolutely torched. I think he got targeted, was it like 9 times, and there was 9 catches. So they really, really, really missed Greenlaw. There's no doubt about it. But, without being in the room, and that conversation matters too, right, Packer fan? Like, it depends on how that conversation went between Kyle and Steve. If on the sideline he's telling Steve Wilks, hey, listen, we're being too aggressive. And Steve Wilks just kind of shrugs it off, and then they have to burn a timeout because they're being too aggressive. Then they have a conversation afterwards. If Steve Wilks isn't like, yeah, I screwed up there, and he kind of goes at Kyle, then you know that working relationship ain't going to move forward. Whether you like Kyle, whether you think he's overrated or not, I personally think he's a good coach. I think he's borderline great. You don't get to the Super Bowl, what is it now, 2-3 times, whatever it is. You don't have that much success in the conference and not be a really good coach, right? Now, we'll kind of get to another chat here in a second, but on that front, I think it matters, that working relationship. You can't bring someone back if you can't even get along with them and you don't even agree with what the play call is supposed to be. And if there's one thing we've learned from the Shanahan tree, and I think this holds true with Matt LaFleur too, is he wants his finger on the pulse of everything. And some might look at that as a bad thing. Some might look at it as a good. I look at it as a good thing. Like that's what the head coach is supposed to do. He's supposed to have his hands in everything. Like rather than just I'm just going to be a play caller and everybody else take care of themselves. I don't think great coaches coach like that, right? So it's an interesting dynamic for sure because they made it to the Super Bowl, obviously, right? Demetrius in the chat, good to see you in here, buddy. He said, good morning. What do you guys think about Jackson Powers Johnson and Cooper DeJean as draft prospects? I got my little cheat sheet put together where we kind of did our mini draft board as far as the positions of need, and I just focused on top heavy. So when it comes to those two players, Jackson Powers Johnson is hands down my best offensive lineman in this draft. Now, keep in mind, tackles carry more value, but I'm simply saying if you were to line them up vertically, forget the position, I think Jackson Powers Johnson is the best O-lineman in this draft, me personally. Cooper DeJean, I've got Cooper DeJean as the third best corner. I've got Quinyon Mitchell 1, Kool-Aid McKinstry 2, Cooper DeJean 3. Then Nate Wiggins out of Clemson at 4, and Terry and Arnold at 5 out of Alabama. So I've got Cooper DeJean sitting in that 3 spot. Let's see what else we got here. Nick McSwain says, do offensive alignments dictate the defensive plays? Very much so. And when you say offensive alignments, that's different from personnel, right? Personnel is, how many running backs, how many tight ends are on the field, therefore equals this many wide receivers, which triggers your nickel, triggers your dime in some defenses. In some running situations, people will stay with their base and just play kind of a drop, a country quarters, if you will, just a drop, keep everything in front of you, but be prepared to stop the run because it's a short rundown. But as far as alignments, yes, and I'll give you a couple of examples. When a defensive coordinator is calling a game, right, they're matching personnel, and they've watched the tape, and they've studied this team, probably a 6-game saturation, 4 previous games, 2 previous head-to-head, and they're looking at it, and they go, okay, when they go 11 personnel, here are their top 3 sets. They run a 2x2, they run a bunch nasty X, and they run a wide split trips right. Okay. So we got to be ready to attack those specific alignments a certain way. So when they play bunch nasty X, they may come in and go, okay, let's just play catch man here, meaning everybody's going to be in man coverage. Typically, the guy who's in the middle of the bunch, your corner would just play about 5 yards off. The guys on the outside of the bunch, whether it's a tight end, the Y on the inside, and a receiver on the out, or you flex the Y, however you want to do it. What you'll do is they'll go, okay, the corner in the middle will play 5 yards off. The others will play 8 to 10 yards off. And they'll let them do their switch release. Because typically when you're in that bunch set, right, that kind of that little half diamond pattern, they'll do a switch release where they'll cross. And the goal there is to confuse the corners. And if you show enough of that on tape, now they can't play bump and run. Because if all 3 of those corners get up on the line and they play bump and run, as soon as they go to do their switch release, you're going to run bodies into each other, right? So they play off, play catch man, and they wait for their switch to end. And as their switch ends, then the inside corner will pick up the inside release, the middle will pick up the mid release, and the outside will pick up the outside release. That's typically how that works in man coverage. Now, some will play zone, and some will even play what we call cover 3 lock, where they'll have one guy playing man coverage. He's locked. That's where the lock comes from. He's locked in man coverage on one specific receiver, and everyone else is playing cover 3. The problem there is you're removing one from your pass rush. So alignments matter big time in this game. It's why the Shanahan tree has gone through the nasty splits. Lining up with those nasty splits inside, you're kind of playing inside out. So you're forcing the defense to kind of close in. To me, it's a negative in the running game, but it's a huge advantage in the passing game, right? That's why early in the season we were going, man, what we need to do is spread things out to open up some space for this running game a bit. We just kept everything condensed. We kept trying to sift when guys couldn't sift. We kept trying to pull when guys couldn't pull. Like Mike Wall said, at that point in the season, the run blocking was so bad they couldn't even run zone hardly because everybody was just kind of, and why is that? Rasheed Walker's not a great run blocker, right? Done great pass blocking, and we know that's the top priority. But it's why I'm still a little bit like, let's not just brush off the fact that we don't need a tackle now all of a sudden, right? Because if you can get a tackle that can run block better than anybody on your offensive line, can run block like Zach Tom, but pass block like Rasheed Walker did last year, don't we want that guy being our left tackle of the future? And if you don't get him, fine. You got Rasheed Walker to fall back on. But we definitely don't want to just kind of brush it off like, okay, we got our left tackle, let's move on. Because you're one injury away from that line being a disaster, right, Tim? I mean, that's
and
always is, man.
David Bakhtiari's and, the Trent Williamses of the world, those guys don't grow on trees, No. So, and a lot of them, I mean, come on, you can go back to D-Box rookie year, and there were struggles, And, these guys have all the talent in the world, but, they need time to develop. Even the greatest of the great. It's very rare that you just come into this league and you don't have anything to work on. I think all the greatest players will tell you that they're constantly working on their game. So what you're looking for here with Rasheed Walker is to, step up the run blocking. And, that's going to be a point of emphasis with these coaches and, his development. And I think if you see that come along, okay, there might be an argument that, hey, we've got our left tackle. But in the meantime, man, you've got to draft and develop, right? It's not just for quarterbacks here in Green Bay. We do that with everybody. So I'm with you there, Clay. I think we, that's definitely something I think we should address in the draft versus free agency. I think we need to keep the youth movement going. And, I do like Rasheed Walker, though. I really do. I think there is a lot of potential there, but, it's just a young player rounding out his game, So we can't jump the gun and make a decision on him right now. We've got to continue to look at that position objectively. And at least the pass pro is there, right? That's, like you said, that's the important part. Watch Jay Money's back and make sure nobody's touching him. I'd hate to have a left tackle that comes into the league and he's run blocking like a dog, but he can't pass pro to save his life. It's the worst problem to have over there at that blind spot for your quarterback. So I think Rasheed's going to continue to grow, and hopefully we see some growth here in 24 for sure.
I think worst case scenario, we've kind of seen the floor, right? And hey, look, this is kind of the worst you'll get, and let's hope he does continue to take those steps, because you can't simulate those live in-game reps like he's gotten, man. It's priceless. And another thing too, like when you talk about run blocking versus pass blocking, you want to prioritize the pass blocking, obviously, and whether you agree with that, I agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. That's what Goody. I mean, it's obvious when you look at how they build their roster. They go for pass blockers and pass rushers, and that's at all positions across the defensive line, right? It's why the running game has struggled so much, is because if you look into each player's history, their past, you go, yeah, it's pretty obvious he's a pass rusher, right? And they're going to try to bring him along in the run defense game, but when you come to offensive line, just like everything on defense, you can't take everything away, right? If you're going to take one thing away, you're going to sacrifice giving something else up, right? And you got to kind of pick and choose and be prepared. Same thing on the offensive line. Like every offensive lineman you draft or sign, they're not going to be great at both. So you got to pick, all right, what's the priority? The priority is pass blocking. At times I disagree with that. And but at the end of the day, if you were to sit back and go, Clayton, you've got to make a decision. Which one's more important to you? I'd have to agree with Goody as pass blocking, man, hands down. So you can understand the direction they go in, and it's not like you said, Tim. It's not like they're out there growing on trees. But number one Packer fan says, so when does Kyle Shanahan get fired for his terrible play calling and getting to the Super Bowl multiple times without winning? LOL. I just don't subscribe to that mindset of man, he can't win the big one, so let's get rid of him and start over. Like the fact that you're getting your team to that point that many times, I will never be the person that goes, yep, just can't win the big one, get him out of here. I mean, look at the punt, the muff punt. Right there's all you need. Like if that punt doesn't get muffed, I feel really confident saying the Niners win the Super Bowl, and we're not even having this conversation. Is that Kyle Shanahan's fault that the punt got muffed? It just kind of goes back to the defensive coordinator talk we had all year long. Like if players aren't smart enough to complete their assignment, or players aren't good enough at tackling, at bringing the ball carrier down, then I don't really put that on the coaches. It's the coach's job to get them prepared, absolutely. But man, to just say, yep, let's scrap it, let's can them, in Kyle Shanahan's case. With the Joe Barry situation, there was enough information that got compiled that you go, all right, yeah, we need to make a move.
Yeah.
It's just I always found myself watching the tape going, man, if I'm Joe Barry, I'm probably going to Matt LaFleur going, what do you want me to do? Tell me exactly what you want me to do. I had 4 guys whiff on a tackle on one play. Like
I can't imagine being upset with a head coach. Like how would that conversation even go? Like, man, you just keep getting us to these Super Bowls.
right. Right.
We're sick of that. It's like, wait, what?
And as far as his play calling being horrible, at times maybe that's so. But they had, if I remember correctly, they had a top 10 offense. So I can actually look that up just to confirm real quick. We got Carly in the house. Carly, how you doing this morning? What's on your mind?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I'd just like to weigh in on this
Yeah.
talk here about Shanahan because I think if we remember Andy Reid, I think was Andy Reid, the guy that we're like, whoa, he's amazing and has 3 Super Bowls now. He had a 20-year career, was it, where he didn't have a single ring, and then now look at him, and how long has Shanahan been going? Like 6 or 7? Like
Yeah.
it might not be with this team. I think Reid had to go from the Eagles, to the Chiefs before he started making it happen, but he will. Like he's just too good of a coach. He will make it, and he will win a Super Bowl. I firmly believe that.
Someone else pointed that out on NFL Network the other night. I can't remember who said it, but they pointed out the same thing. Like Shanahan is where Andy Reid was in Philly. That's basically where he's at. And do you guys think that Philly wishes they hadn't moved on from Andy Reid? Silly question, right?
Possibly.
So here you're getting in that cycle of just chasing your tail, right? I pulled up the scoring numbers too, by the way. In points per play, San Francisco was number 1 in the league, number 1. And then when you look at scoring offense as far as points per game, they were number 2 in points per game. So what you're basically saying there, if you're saying, hey, look, we need to fire Shanahan because he can't win the big one, you're going, okay, forget the fact that we had the top scoring offense in the league and forget the fact that we had the number 3 scoring defense in the league, right? Like understand that he made that hire with Steve Wilkes when Carolina said, we're not interested in him, just let him walk, right? So there's something he sees there, and I guarantee you it was immediately following the game. He's going, if we had played less aggressive, we probably beat them by a couple scores. But we got too aggressive with the man coverage and the cover 1 man. So, yeah, that's really interesting there, though, the fact that he did have the top scoring offense in the league. My goodness, man. There you go. So, and we make no 2 bones about it, man. I think we should have beat San Francisco. We had every opportunity to. You don't drop that pick 6. If you're savage, you don't drop that pick 6, you win that game. If you don't throw that interception across your body at the end, there's a good chance you go right down the field and score, at least a field goal. There's a lot of ifs and buts, right? If ifs were fifths, we'd all be drunk. The old Darius Butler saying there. Zane Strong in the chat said, is safety or O-line our biggest need in the draft? In my opinion, our biggest need in the draft is safety, as it sits right now, going into free agency, okay? I've got safety, this in this order: safety, corner, O-line, linebacker, D-line, edge, tight end, and halfback. That's how I've got it sitting, okay? So Again, safety, cornerback, and O-line. Safety, cornerback, O-line, and linebacker is the order I've got the needs sitting in. And again, you could bring back one or two of those safeties you had last year. That could help minimize the need at safety. You still kind of need starting caliber. Not only do I break it down like that, I also break it down to how many starters you could potentially add on the roster to improve the starting aspect of your team. 2 starting safeties, 2 starting cornerbacks, meaning a nickel and a cornerback opposite Jair. I'm not sold on Stokes. I'm sorry. I'm down here in the South. I watch a lot of SEC football. I'd love to see him pan out, right? But there is nothing I've seen so far to go, yep, he's a guy, right? Now, could this be a nice change of pace for him playing slightly more man? If we go from 23% to say 30% man, that would play into Eric Stokes's play style a little bit more. The problem I have is I've watched the tape of when he's played, when he's healthy. And you know what his biggest negative for me is when I watch Eric Stokes play when he's healthy? In man coverage, he is horrible at locating the ball. So you see him sticking to the receiver, and then at the last second, he goes to turn his head, and the ball goes right in beside him, and they make the catch. It's like they see that on tape and go, all right, they play man coverage. We're attacking him with back shoulders all day long. As soon as I see his numbers, I'm putting the ball in the air. Receiver, you show late hands, and let's eat him up. That's what you've seen happen before he got hurt. He graded out in the 50s before he got hurt this last time. The year before, he graded out real bad, and we just chalked it up too well. The whole defense was grading out bad. So really all you got to kind of hang your hat on is that rookie year where he played pretty good. So, yeah, that's my biggest needs, though, Zane, is safety. I would say safety and then corner and then offensive line is how I would look at it.
Then long snapper.
Yes, of course. You got to have the long snapper. People hear that and probably think we're being serious then.
Oh, no. I'm totally joking.
Give him a disclaimer. Let's see here. All right, let's do this. My man Greg Rice in here fired up. He's on the diesel. Look at this. Good morning, Lambeau. Good to see you in here, buddy. All right, let's do this. I've got a really cool, since we kind of shifted into draft talk there, I got a cool video. And if this gets hit with a copyright, the stream may go down, but it'll come right back up because we are allowed to use it. The AI may trigger it. So just keep that in mind. If it does go down, just refresh, come right back in. As soon as the video's over, it'll be back up. It may not drop at all. But this is really cool. This is from an NFL Timeline documentary. Give them a shout out. NFL Films did this. They do phenomenal work. This takes us back to the 1994 draft. And this time of year, things start to heat up because you've got people that are executives, current executives, former executives. They're compiling all their information. And then you got everyone else who's putting out their draft guides, putting out all their draft media stuff, right? Your Mel Kippers, your Todd McShays, your on and on and on, right? And there's no secret that these front office guys and these sports media members who think they've got the draft just absolutely figured out, they've always butted heads. They'll look at this and just laugh at each other, right? This was called a day that would live in infamy, I think is what it was termed as. In 1994, you had a little spat between Mel Kiper Jr., who you guys know is a self-proclaimed draft expert. For those of you who don't know, full disclaimer, I'm not a big Mel Kiper fan. I mean, he's good at what he does. ESPN obviously trusts him. He's covered a draft way longer than I've even been alive, right? But he's never been in a front office. He's never had to make a pick. He's never had to actually evaluate a player with his job on the line, right? That's why it's hard for me to go, man, this guy's the best. And then you got Bill Tobin, at the time was the general manager for the Colts, an Irishman that was a hothead, if you will. Now, listen, was Bill Tobin a good GM? I think he was good enough to be one of the top 32. That says a lot, or top 30, however many teams were in the league at the time in 94. That says way more than Mel Kiper's resume, in my opinion, okay? My humble but accurate opinion there. But this is when the draft really took on this whole, wow, this is a reality show, and we're watching it in real time. And it's why the viewership, the numbers continue to go up. But check this out.
This is amazing, huh? I get a big kick out of every year. I have that ugly green suit on and a big flock of seagulls hairdo. So that's why I like it being reruns. People actually believe I had hair at one point.
So you are surprised?
Oh, very surprised. Yeah, we thought for sure it would be either Indianapolis, Washington, or LA. The next logical choice was the Indianapolis Colts.
The Colts traded up with the Rams, moving from number 7 to number 5. Everyone thought they were moving up to take Dilfer. What followed became the signature moment of the 1994 draft.
The Rams have made a trade with Indianapolis, and Indianapolis has selected Trev Alberts, linebacker from Nebraska.
Wow. That's simple.
Well, I mean, Albert's a great player. Yeah. There's no question about that. But you got a problem with this move?
I think it's a typical Colt move. I mean, here's a team that needed a franchise quarterback. To pass up a Trent Dilfer when all you have is Jim Harbaugh, give me a break. That's why the Colts are picking second every year in the draft, not battling for the Super Bowl like other clubs in the National Football League.
It was, whoa, Mel, where are you going, Bays? You know, mild-mannered Mel, all of a sudden, boom, here he comes.
That's why the Colts are picking second every year in the draft.
You know, Mel was never shy in his opinion, and he wasn't shy in his opinion in this case.
Well, you think about Jim Harbaugh was a solid quarterback, not a great one. And you felt like, okay, can these quarterbacks improve your position? And I thought Trent Dilfer could.
And obviously, general managers don't like to be called out like that by analysts.
So shortly afterward, we kick it down to Indianapolis, where Chris Mortensen is.
All right, so I just want to say this real quick. You see Mortensen laughing there and giggling at the comment, right? Watch how awkward this becomes. And this is why we always say on this podcast, if I wouldn't say it to a player's face, a coach's face, or a front office official's face, I'm not going to say it on this podcast. Because you've seen, he was just laughing at Bill Tobin and the fact that Mel Kiper roasted him, right? Now he's got to face him face-to-face here and give an interview. Watch this.
With Bill Tobin.
I knew you'd have one surprise for us today.
Not a surprise to us.
No, that's great. I mean, no, that's what I mean. I'm not, hey.
Did you see that energy change?
One question, Bill. A lot of criticism about not taking a quarterback here. Your response?
Well, you know, we got a guy up there. Who in the hell is Mel Kiper, in a way? I mean, here's a guy that criticizes everybody, whoever they take. He's got the answers to who you should take and who you shouldn't take. In my knowledge of him, he's never, ever put on a jockstrap. He's never been a coach. He's never been a scout. He's never been an administrator. And all of a sudden, he's an expert. He's in our papers 2 days ago telling us who we have to take. We don't have to take anybody that Mel Kiper says we have to take. Mel Kiper has no more credentials to do what he's doing than my neighbor, and my neighbor's a postman, and he doesn't even have season tickets to the NFL.
At that instant, it just became clear that this was reality television of the highest order.
Oh, I think I probably got my Irish up. Bill Tobin was a hot-headed guy. I love Bill. He said what the entire league thought. Who in the hell is Mel Kiper, in a way?
I know I and probably 27 other general managers congratulated him. It was classic.
Who in the hell is Mel Kiper?
Mel Kiper doesn't know any more than my postman.
The thing is, nobody's ever really tracked down Tobin's mailman to find out exactly how much he does. I'd like to know that sometime. It could be that Tobin's mailman knows a lot about football. Might have been more of a compliment than any of us realized.
Mel Kiper?
Oh, I love it. And
oh, my gosh.
You guys seen that was actually Peter King there. They got his take on it, right? He's the one that was in the video just the other day with Andy Reid breaking down the corn dog play, right? The return of the corn dog. So,
and 30 years later, we're still wondering who the hell Mel Kiper is.
Yeah, and 30 years later, we're wondering who the hell was Bill Tobin's mailman. That's what I want to know. You know what I'm saying? I love how he said, hell, he may have known more than all of us. Who knows, right?
You know, I do think it's kind of cool that apparently Mel Kiper and Jimmy Johnson have the same barber.
Yes, that is correct.
The hair is there.
They call it the helmet hair. It looks like you're putting on a helmet, right? Like I don't know how people do it, man. I do not know how people do it, but good stuff. Carly, you got anything to add? You just chime in, okay? Don't feel like you have to, but at any point you just cut us off and make your comments, all right?
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what Carly said. She said that was narrated like an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, LOL.
I love it.
Boy, Unsolved Mysteries. I can hear the theme music. I can't think of his name, but I can
Robert
see the
Stack.
Robert Stack. Yeah. Tim, did you grow up watching Unsolved Mysteries,
bro? Of course I did.
I'm telling you,
Unsolved Mysteries, and what was the other one? Rescue 911. You remember Rescue 911?
Rescue 911.
We're showing our age right now, Clayton.
Dude,
and Cops was definitely a favorite of me and my brother.
What you gonna do? And this stuff was not staged either. Today, a lot of stuff staged on TV. This was not staged. It was just, hey, this knucklehead's over here dancing naked in the street. Let's turn the camera on. Let's go arrest him. Right? I love it, man. Absolutely love it. Not that he was dancing naked, just the old 90s TV. You know what I'm saying. Chris said, LOL, love it, talking about the video, man. Greg Rice says, never put on a jock. He just roasted him right there on national television, man. Yeah, I completely agree. David Mitchell said that's probably top 5 all-time draft moments. And these are the things that happen, right? Like, it truly is a reality show. You're going to see someone drop in the draft. That's going to become a story. You're going to hear things leading up to the draft where, like, people will leak information on prospects. And I'm not a big fan of it, but you can kind of find out behind the scenes. You got people trying to drag them down, and that stuff it's just like, it's a roller coaster. It really is. You'll get someone all of a sudden the night of the draft, a video surfaces of someone with a gas mask on smoking the devil's lettuce. You know what I mean? Like, you never know what's going to hit. It gets
off the damn weed.
Exactly, Stephen A. We appreciate you dropping by, man. Let's see here. Chris in the chat says, every draft year with Copper's take, I'm begging for another moment like that. Yeah, no doubt. That I kind of felt bad for I can't remember his name now, the reporter there that was with him. Do you remember who that was? He works for ESPN. Chris Mortensen.
Mortensen, yeah.
He was going, yeah, boy, you guys surprised us, huh? No, we're not surprised. He went, oh, he's mad. Kind of leaned back, set up straight. I love it, dude.
Oh, man.
Absolutely love it. RDC2 in the chat just says running butt naked through the trailer park. You just made Mandy mad, promise you. Yeah, it's Chris Mortensen. Appreciate you, Chris. So good stuff there, man. Thought we would show that since we're kind of entering draft season. Sometimes you got to pull some of those old clips. This is kind of cool, man. The 33rd team has added, I think, over 30 more prospects, Tim, to their draft board. So I thought, why don't we dive into that a little bit and kind of look at how their draft board has changed? Really, the grades haven't changed at all. They're grading these players as if they are a NFL front office. And what I like about the 33rd team is they have former execs, former coaches, former players that are in-house advising their staff on, hey, here's how we would grade him out. Here's how we would look at this prospect, right? And then you'll have the players kind of give their take on certain things too. I just love their whole setup. But we're going to go full screen here for a second. I'm going to zoom in too so you guys can see this. I want to show you what's really cool about this tool that they've put together. I'm going to zoom in one more time. First of all, this is all the positions. The only thing I don't like about it is it doesn't scale completely out over there on the right, so we're going to have to take it over just a touch. So the grades will spill into the quarterbacks just a little bit, but it ain't going to hurt too much so we can see the safeties' names, okay? So this is kind of how their board sits right now, Tim. Let me know if you can see this okay. Is it zoomed in enough?
Oh, yeah.
All right, good deal.
If I can see it, everyone else should be able to.
Exactly.
Mine is a bad over here.
I'm getting there, man. Well, golly, that's something that LASIK's on its way. I just about guarantee. When you're out in the sun as much as I am, man, you those eyes take a beat. And luckily, I got brown eyes. As my dad said, crap-eating brown eyes. The only thing I took after my mama were these. He used another word, but he'd say those crap-eating brown eyes. So let's look at the top tiers. All right, the very top tier, you got 4 players according to the 33rd team. Again, their board is not finished. There's still prospects to grade out. I believe they're starting at the top and working down, but I could be wrong there. So when you look at the top side of this draft in that top tier, you got quarterback Caleb Williams as the top prospect. You got wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., and then you got tackle Joe Alt. In that same tier, they've got Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU, in that top tier as well. That's something that a lot of people aren't talking about. Malik Neighbors is probably going to go really, really early in this draft. Okay, so the next tier down, we go to 6.9. Okay, so we go from 7+ to 6.9. In this tier, you've only got what appears to be 2 players. You've got wide receiver Adunzi out of Washington, and you've got offensive tackle Latham out of Alabama. Okay, so you're seeing with the top 2 tiers, it's quarterback, wide receiver, and tackle. No other positions currently. You go to the next tier, 6.8. You've got quarterback Drake May, tight end Brock Bowers, offensive tackle Fashanu, offensive tackle Fuaga. You've got edge defender Turner out of Alabama, and you've got Latu out of UCLA at the edge position as well. Then you move over to cornerbacks. You get your first cornerbacks on the horizontal board in Kool-Aid McKinstry at number 1, and they got Nate Wiggins number 2. You climb down one more tier, and this is as far as we'll go, and then I want to show you how you can sort this thing. It's really cool. You've got quarterback Jaden Daniels out of LSU. This is now tier 6.7, okay? You got Jaden Daniels Out of LSU, you got wide receiver Coleman. Out of Florida State, you got LSU's wide receiver Thomas Jr. You got tight end Sanders out of Texas. You got tackle Gotten out of Oklahoma. You got Fontana, guard slash center, so interior offensive line out of Washington. Then they got Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. So someone mentioned in the chat earlier today, I told you guys I had Jackson Powers Johnson as the best offensive lineman. They've got Fontana, okay? And now let's look at our offensive lineman real quick. This is the first time we really want to compare this. We don't even have Fontana in that first tier, like that top 4, right? We have Powers Johnson 1, Christian Haynes 2, Cooper Beebe 3, and Fuaga 4. So Fontana is kind of one of those surprises there. Now, my board is compiled of a bunch of different opinions, a bunch of different information that I trust. I'll promise you who isn't included in my draft board creation. That's Mel Kiper Jr. Okay. Let's dog him. That's just my personal opinion. I don't take his information serious. I just don't. Defensive tackle, you got Newton out of, I believe that's Illinois. Yeah, Jerzan Newton. You got Byron Murphy out of Texas and Tavondre Sweat out of Texas. So there you see the top defensive tackles, interior defensive linemen, according to their board. Then you've got Robinson at edge out of Penn State. That's Chop Robinson. And then you got Verse out of Florida State at edge. Here's where Quinyon Mitchell drops in. He comes in at the 6.7 grade as well. So they've got him third best corner in the draft. I've got him as the first best, the best corner in the draft. So the only thing that would change about my cornerback rankings compared to theirs is Mitchell would leapfrog McKinstry, okay? And then you would add Cooper DeJean under McKinstry, but over top of Wiggins, okay? That's how mine was set up. They got Tavarius Arnold down there in the 5 spot. I've got him in the 5 spot too, maybe a little closer. I wouldn't really consider him a tier lower. But again, I would lean towards the 33rd team's opinion over my own because these are former executives who have evaluated rosters and made picks themselves or evaluated prospects and made picks themselves in the past. And also former coaches who were in those draft rooms who are also given input in watching the tape. Most of the time, the front office will go to a coach and go, hey, here's our top 5 at this position. Which one do you like the most? And they'll get his input and take it back to the draft room and go, okay, if it matches their input, great. Doesn't mean they'll take that player, depending on the organization, of course. Like it's been really, really obvious and widely spoken, openly spoken, that Kyle Shanahan kind of has top say with the 49ers. John Lynch is the GM, don't get me wrong, but it sounds like Shanahan will flex from time to time and let John Lynch know, hey, I want that player instead of that player, right? And then, of course, safety. This is why we went to this tier. The 2 top safeties, obviously, they've got Newman as 1 and Kinchins as 2, okay? And they're in the 6.7 range. Look how it drops off at safety, Tim. That's the one to point out. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're going to get one of these top safeties, just like any market, whether it's business, the housing market, whatever you're comparing, right? When there is low supply and high demand, that increases the price, the value of said product, right? So when you look at the safeties, the fact that there's only 2 at the top and there's multiple teams that are going to need safeties, that's going to drive the value up. In this case means someone would be willing to spend a higher pick on those specific players because it's so thin at the top. As we're corner, the fact that you carry 5 corners on your roster, probably going to balance this out to where it's not going to affect the actual value of the cornerback position in the draft. They'll probably just take them as they want them, as they need them. But the fact that you got kind of these top-heavy positions, like wide receivers one, outside of Harrison and Neighbors, I can see people passing on Adunzi, Coleman, and Thomas Jr. to kind of go, okay, listen, there's 3 other targets there. We might be able to trade up and get one of those later. Let's just wait a second. Now, it does drop off significantly later in the draft. Not that we're targeting a wide receiver at all by no stretch of the imagination, but it's just important to understand what other teams are going to be targeting. There was something that came out yesterday. People were saying that they have J.J. McCarthy, who's down here in the 6.4 spot. They have him as the second best quarterback in the draft. Like, if that's true and that's not just a smokescreen, the rumor could have came out of J.J. McCarthy's camp to drive the value up.
Yep.
This is lying season right now. People will lie through their teeth agents will lie through their teeth to get their prospects higher on people's boards. Teams will lie to media members and tell them we're all over this guy to make other teams think he's going higher. This is lying season. This is espionage at the highest level in the NFL this time of year. But just wanted to point that out. J.J. McCarthy does jump up here somewhere around Caleb Williams, Drake Mayer, Jaden Daniels. That's what we want. We want as many quarterbacks to come off the board as possible for the Packers draft at number 25. Same thing with wide receivers. I want all three of these quarterbacks, including J.J. McCarthy and Penix Jr., along with wide receivers Harrison Jr., Neighbors, Adunzi, Coleman, Thomas Jr., heck, maybe even one of these guys in the 6.4 tier. Get them all out of the way before we pick at 25, because that's going to ensure we get a position in need. But let's just go around the horn here. Anything you guys got? Tim, Carly, anything you want to add to this before I kind of show you guys the cool aspect of this tool?
Yeah, we're taking a safety with pick 25.
Got to, man. Let's sign me up, man. Unless, of course, one of these top tier guys somehow fall. A Joe Alt, a Latham. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a situation where one of those. Here's another one. What if Bowers is on the board at 25? Like, some people are saying this is a generational top tight end, way better than the tight ends last year. I don't know if I'm sold out to that, but that's something else that could happen, right? All depends on what Goody's board looks like and how these fly off the board. Carly, what do you got?
No, not a whole lot, except that, like, I actually had a dream that, like, one of our top guys got injured, like, top, like, interests, which was just really dumb that I had a dream about the draft. So it kind of shows you how too much time I'm spent learning about this stuff right now.
I was going to say, it's not dumb. It's an awesome thing. But yes, it is a little bit pathetic, because I have those same dreams too. Definitely. Yeah, Mandy's having dreams about world peace and doing things that actually matter. I'm over here going, man, what if he measures in a little bit short and drops to the third round? How cool would that be? You know, that's the type of dreams I have. So there you go. Check this out. We can sort this by our needs. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to show you what I mean by this. This is all the positions on the board right now. Really cool tool. You guys know the top needs I have before free agency and before re-signing our own players. We said 4 safeties, 2 of which were starters, 4 corners, 2 of which were starters, 3 offensive line, 1 of which is a starter, 2 linebackers, 1 should be a starter, defensive line, 1 starter, because I feel like our defensive line on the interior has underperformed, especially in the run game. Tight end, edge backup, tight end backup, halfback backup. Okay, so let's go down the line and sort this by need, okay, by specific need for the Packers. So we're going to go safety first. We'll go corner second. We'll go tackle and then interior offensive line, because we know tackles carry more value, right? And that's the thing. People that are saying we don't need a tackle. If Bach doesn't return, and you can go out and get one of these guys in the 6.8 to 6.7 range, and he'll be significantly better than Rasheed Walker. Or here's another idea. What if Rasheed Walker stays at left tackle? You draft one of these tackles, plug them in at right tackle, and now you kick Tom in to right guard. Look how much better that offensive line looks. Or play Tom at center, right? And maybe grab a guard too. These are the things that could happen. That's the reason I'm going to include offensive tackle here too, because it carries so much value. Linebacker would be next. Then it would be defensive line, or defensive tackle, I should say. Then it would be edge, tight end, and then halfback. So now what you got is a customized draft board with all the noise removed. And here's what's cool. You still got the horizontal aspect with the most value being at the top. You can see the cluster of positions across the board, right? Now you can look at it from a needs standpoint. You go from left to right. So it's kind of like these charts we've been showing with next gen stats and stuff, where it'll take X versus Y or Y versus Z. And then you can kind of draw it out and go, okay, here's the guy who played best. You know what I'm saying? Like the most consistent, if you will. Now you can look at it and go, okay, our top need is safety. There's a good chance, if this is how the Packers draft board looks, right? And let's say their draft board doesn't change significantly at the top, and it very well may, right? If you do that, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players. So 9 would come off the board before Nubin would if the whole league agreed with this draft board. But keep in mind, you've got quarterbacks, you've got wide receivers that was top heavy, right? So when you draft, if Nubin is on your board and this is how your board sits, you see how it would make the most sense to draft him. That's why if you try to wait till the second round, you're kind of screwed. But again, from needs left to right, where is the depth at here, guys? Where is there not depth and where is there depth, Tim? You see there's no depth at the top of the draft at safety, right? So people are going to overpay for safety. Cornerback, there's a lot there, isn't there?
Yeah, and tackle.
Tackle too. So next, interior offensive line, a little bit thinner, right? But we know they carry less value. It's very rare that one will get drafted in the first round or a select number of those people will get drafted at that position in the first round. It seems like teams like to wait till the second round. That's where we got Elton Jenkins, right? That's where we got Josh Myers. Whether you think Josh Myers is a great center or not. Linebacker's another one. Really, really, really thin at the top of linebacker, right, Tim? You see that?
Yep.
Defensive tackle, kind of middle of the road. You don't have any in the top 3 tiers. Edge, you don't have any in the top 2 tiers, but man, it's thick right there in the middle. Holy cow, dude. Right in the middle, it is loaded with talent for sure. Tight end, kind of thin at the top, right? Really all the way across the board. Last year was one of those historical tight end drafts. So people will probably overpay a little bit for tight ends this year because it's so slim pickings. And then running back, look at that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't get your top running back until the 6th tier, according to the 3013. So just a really cool way. Always looking at the horizontal board is it always gives you a different perspective on how to attack that current draft. If this is how Goody's board looks, it could be totally different, right? And I always respect the fact that his board seems to look a little different than most people. But this is former execs, former coaches, former players that are helping compile this information, give their input on, hey, here's what our draft board would look like. So let's go around the horn there as we get ready to wrap up. I just thought that'd be a cool little exercise to show. Oh, I did want to let me make one more comment here, and then I'll turn it over to you guys before we wrap up. Remember, we graded linebackers, Tim. We came up Jeremiah Trotter Jr., number 1, Junior Colson, number 2, and Edgerrin Cooper, number 3. Okay, that was our inside linebacker, our stack backers, if you will. That's how we had them graded out on our board. Look at the linebacker position here. Look where Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is, bro. He's in the 5.9 range. Why is that? What's the knock? What's the negative on Jeremiah Trotter Jr.? It's his size, right?
Yep.
These coaches and executives, man, they take that RAS, and RAS does include size too, guys. It's not just combine numbers, right? It's basically says it's your athletic score. It's your athletic profile, your relative athletic score. They compare it to everyone over the last, I think, since the 80s. And they put people in percentiles and go, okay, here's the guy that has the best size, the best speed, the best everything averaged out into a formula done by Math Bomb there on Twitter. So it's just it's interesting to me that Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is so low here by these former execs. So when you look at our top 3, if we were to go to them for permission, let's say this is our 3rd round pick, one of our 3rd round picks, and we're definitely taking a backer here. We got to choose a linebacker. If we go to them and we say, all right, who do you like more, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Junior Colson, or Edgerrin Cooper? There's Edgerrin Cooper in the 5.9 range. There's Jeremiah Trotter Jr., 4 players lower than Cooper in the same 5.9 range. You got to go all the way up here. Colson is their top graded linebacker of the prospects they've graded so far. So if they were our draft advisor in that situation, we would be drafting Colson over Jeremiah Trotter Jr. So just wanted to point that out. We don't want this pod to turn into, let's just talk about our opinion and what we think we should do. We want to run it through the filter of former execs, former coaches. We want to get people like Mike Wall's opinion. We want to get people like Daryl Thompson's opinion that played for the Packers in the 90s. All these different. We want to talk to people who have been in and around the game. Ego has no amigo. We got to remove our ego if we want the best information, especially coming in the draft season. So let's go around the horn. Tim, what do you want to add to that? Anything you want me to scroll through and show you there, man?
No, I'm just want to echo that same sentiment. And just like Randy said here in the chat, don't believe the hype, trust your scouts.
There you go.
It's so true, because the hype is, carefully crafted and calculated. And, like you said, a lot of these coaches advocate for their guys, and, a lot of rumors get started. It's, it's almost like, a little like Hollywood around this time of year. You got to just, smoke and mirrors. So you got to cut through that. And Randy's absolutely spot on. Don't believe the hype, trust in your scouts. That's why they're on your staff. That's why you're flying them all over the country, having them look at these guys. And, you'd be foolish to, put in all of that work and then just, throw that all out the window and, buy into some hype, because we talk about guys falling in the draft. There's guys that rise in the draft too, and end up getting picked early, and they end up being busts. We've seen it, hundreds of times. So, I'm with Randy on this one, man. Trust the scouts.
Yeah.
And if you don't trust your scouts, you need new scouts.
Yeah, bingo. That's key right there. Carla, you got anything before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I just want to talk about what Elder Grimm said here about am I the only one who doesn't think we need to draft a tight end at all? I feel like we could find a fourth guy in undrafted free agents. I agree with that. I think that could be really good, unless there's a really great one that comes at a good value that we could use to trade with some other, with some other team for something like that. But I agree. I think we've done pretty awesome as far as our tight ends so far.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very, very good point. And like Ben Sims, great addition, graded out well, played good, blocked pretty decent. I thought he played really well for given that he, no other team really wanted him on the active roster at the time. I'll tell you another position too that's very comparable to tight end this year. Look at the running back position. I got some people that are saying take a running back in the second and third round. And I'm going, why?
Who and why and how?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look how far. And, I know people were crazy about Braylon Allen of Wisconsin. He's like way down there, and running back doesn't carry that much value. So to answer the question with tight end, if Brock Bowers is there at number 25, would I be upset if they drafted him? Absolutely not. I think that he is better than Musgrave and better than Kraft, me personally, in just the tape I've watched and the opinions I've seen. He's one of those guys that's going to be, obviously the top tight end in this draft. He probably would have been one of, if not the top tight ends last year too. We'll see how he measures at the combine. That'll shift this board around a little bit too. Sanders, I would rather not take him. Obviously at 25, I'd say no way, no how. Wiley, you see it gets thin quick. You got to get way down here. Like, would I be interested in Wilson or Bell? Probably not if the 33rd team's draft board was my draft board. So I completely agree with what Eldegrim said in the chat. You don't have to go crazy there, right? You don't have to reach. You could probably get one as an undrafted free agent, unless somehow, some way Brock Bowers falls to you even in the second round. I'd be run that card up there. I don't see how that could happen. But then that second tight end as well, who was it? What was his name again? Sanders. What if he dropped into the third or the fourth round? I'd be okay with that, right? But
especially when you consider like what you said, we're looking for a third or fourth on the depth chart tight end.
Exactly.
We're not looking for Gronk right now. And so I would hate to neglect our O-line or our defense.
Bingo.
And piss away a pick early on a generational talent or not,
right.
At tight end. So I'm with you guys on that. I mean, not saying we don't take one. I just don't think we take one that soon.
Right, exactly. It's all going to come down to what does their board look like, and how far does one of these top tier talents fall to them at the tight end position. But I would be totally cool with what Eldegrim's saying here. Hey, let's just – and here's what's cool. When you go get an undrafted free agent, you got like a 90-man roster you can fill up for camp. You can take 3 or 4 swings at undrafted free agents and then narrow it down as camp starts and then have a camp battle for that number 4 tight end spot, right? That's something else that could kind of come into place. Man, that's good conversation. Appreciate y'all being involved in the chat. Thank you for identifying that, Carly. Great pick there for sure. We're going to get out of here. We're going to talk a little Rashawn Gary earlier, but we ran out of time. So we'll be back tonight for PTA Live at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And we'll get into all kinds of other stuff. Like I said, I'm saving all these screenshots, so we'll have all this for the database. If we have time, we might do another mock draft tonight just to kind of comb through and revisit things. We've got we need to relook at free agency again too, Tim, because we now have our needs identified. If the draft happened before the re-sign / free agency period, we've got that information compiled now to go, okay, we would actually need a corner, a safety, this, that, and go down the line and kind of fill that roster out. We're not just doing it in order in which it comes. We're doing different exercises and doing it in different orders. That way we can get all the information compiled and go, okay, globally, here's the way we should attack each of these position groups in the offseason. So there you go. All right, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the chat. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. We will see you tonight. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.